You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today. But before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them. Do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. And let's get into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Today we are up in Tulsa at the church studio. I wish I could take this conference room desk home with me because it's fantastic. But really excited to dive into kind of music history today, the history of Leon Russell. And my guest is, the reason we're here today to share those amazing stories, talk about the vision of the church studio, where it's going, what it was, and it's coming back to. So, Teresa Knox, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you for hosting us. Super excited to be here.
Thank you.
And dive into it and see the building. We were here, in November for the induction ceremony pre-party, I guess. It's great to see full of people, but it's nice to come through kind of quiet and really take things in. So thank you so much for having us. I guess we'll start with, what was, your kind of draw to purchasing this building and going through this whole process of bringing it back to life?
Well, I think first and foremost, I love Leon. I didn't know him personally, but from a fan perspective. So I started collecting Leon memorabilia as a kid. And my first item, I'll have to show it to you, is a 7-Eleven Slurpee cup. And I was 8 years old when I got that. And of course, 7-Eleven did a series of the top 50 rock stars in America. And Leon was one of them. And of course, they wanted you to go back and get another Slurpee. Of course, I always mixed the Coke and the cherry. And that was so good. And I thought that was really neat. And I don't know, I just started collecting things at garage sales and thrift stores, and I had a lot of older siblings, and they were really into Leon, so he was just something we always talked about.
Yeah, so music was something that was huge part of your life from a very young age?
It was. I come from a poor family, and we didn't have a lot, but I always had a little radio, and I thought it was so cool how the local DJs would say from Tulsa, Oklahoma, J.J. Cale or David Gates or Leon Russell or Jim Keltner, the top drummer on the planet from Tulsa and even from Oklahoma. When you look at Jimmy Webb or, Jesse Ed Davis. But almost all of them ended up in Tulsa in some form or fashion.
Yeah, so you grew up, born and raised in Tulsa?
Yes, I was born in Tulsa, 1969, and grew up on the west side, and so it's always been my home, and absolutely love it.
Yeah, so from a young age, loving music, were you ever drawn to the instrument side of things? Did you play any instruments growing up and think, I want to be a musician one day?
I did. So in my home, my oldest brother was a multi-instrumentalist, so he always had a lot of instruments laying around. Of course, I wasn't able to use a lot of them, but he had a flute. And so I picked up the flute and started playing it. I remember my first music book was Elton John's Yellow Brick Road. And so I started learning every single song on that album. And then, of course, I was introduced to Jethro Tull and Marshall Tucker and Chicago, all the bands that used a flute. There aren't that many. And so I don't know, I thought I could be this rock and roll flute player, and ended up being in band. And but that was the extent of it. I picked up other woodwinds, but didn't really go anywhere with it.
Yeah. So growing up then, at a young age, passion for music, wanting to do it, going through school. Most musicians I know don't like education. They just want to play music, do whatever, and just kind of that is their sole focus. What about you? Was it like, did you kind of have that? Did you kind of not really have that much love for education, or did you go through the school system thinking, all right, I might not be in music as a career as an artist, but maybe I'll have a job one day that can afford me where we are today?
Really, it never crossed my mind to, except, if I ever had a garage band or did something like that. But, I wasn't a fan of school. It wasn't emphasized in my family. The majority of my siblings didn't have an opportunity to graduate from high school. And so, by the grace of God, I did graduate from high school, me and another brother of mine. There were 8 of us. But, it was just kind of a means to an end. I started working at a really young age, so work was really my priority growing up. Even as a child, I had jobs. So,
So what was the dream then as a kid? As when you're working and you're getting through high school and you graduate and you think, now I get to start my life. And one of 8 kids, that's a lot. It's a lot of kids for parents to feed, raise, take care of, give attention to. I'm sure it sounds like you're pretty independent from a young age because you had to be.
Right.
And what is Teresa's life like when she's 16 to 20 years old, and what are the plans from that point?
Well, I just wanted to be self-sufficient. We didn't have a lot. So working at a young age, at 9, 10, 11, 12, I got my first legit job. I lied, said I was 16, but it was really empowering knowing that if I wanted to buy new clothes or I started wearing makeup, that I could buy that on my own. So I just became really obsessed with earning an income, and I didn't know exactly how I was going to do that. Until I was 18. I thought it would be really cool to work in a dental office, and that was my, and at the time I was working at Sonic. I worked at Sonic, which I love Sonic. It's a great Oklahoma company. I worked there from the age of 15 to 18. But I just remember seeing other people, I called them fancy people, and they would have braces or talk about going to the dentist, and I never had those opportunities to have that type of health care. And so I stumbled upon a little school at the age of 18, a 6-month-long program, and became a dental assistant. And it really changed the course of my life. I tell some people that it saved my life because, growing up literally in that type of poverty, it was drugs, sex, and rock and roll. It sounds like a rock band, but that's poverty in Oklahoma in the 70s and 80s very much looked like that. And I was kind of going in the direction of my older siblings. So I wanted to be a legit normal person in society, what I thought was normal, and becoming a dental assistant at the age of 18 afforded me that normalcy that I was really craving.
Yeah. You mentioned working at Sonic. Are you pretty good on roller skates?
Actually, I was better. I was not good on roller skates. I was good at running, but I absolutely loved that job. I love that company. But yeah.
Yeah, and I've tried every flavor, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I'm a little disappointed that they use a lot of artificial flavoring now and fake whipped cream. In fact, I just told my husband about a week ago that I'm going to write a letter to Sonic and talk about the good old days and the ingredients that they used, but they're still a great company.
Yeah. So you mentioned growing up kind of 70s, 80s, like the the not so glamorous life of, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, you know, because it's poverty, and you're learning how to be self-sufficient. That is your goal, and you see, you know, a shining light. You see an avenue, and I don't have to go, you know, to be a dentist, but I can be a dental assistant, and it's a lot cheaper to be a dental assistant,
right?
You know, and a great route to go down. And it's practical learning, right? It's not I have to sit and deal with, you know, bodies and all that stuff. That is your kind of, I guess, exit plan, your way out, your shining light, your way to build a career for yourself.
It was. I mean, that was the beginning of my career. It was, you know, when you come from a broken background, it affects your decision making, it affects your self-esteem, but having a good job that you can be proud of, you know, changes the course of your life. And early on, you know, working with patients, wanting my opinion, you know, what should I do about my teeth? What should, you know, what do you think? What's your opinion? I mean, my head exploded because I just got more confident, and I was around, you know, working adults, which I really hadn't been before growing up, and people with dental insurance and fancy cars and all of these different things. And it just exposed me to a different life, and people wanted to know my opinion, and I don't know, it just made me feel really, really good. And that's how I started my career. I learned a lot. Everything I learned at Sonic, I used in the dental office with customer service and damage control and customer recovery strategy. And I worked for an amazing dentist. He was actually an endodontist, and I learned so much from him. And that's really what got me started, planted that seed for that entrepreneurial bug of starting a business in my early 20s.
Okay, so then you go on to start your own. Tell me about that.
I did. So early on in my dental assistant career, I discovered I had a knack for training people. And I built this kind of, you know, I wouldn't have called it a curriculum back then, but I would take Polaroid photos of dental procedure trays and write down a list of how to do things. And we would get dental assistant interns, and I really became in charge of training them. And over, they would tell me, I learned so much more from you than I did in school. And that gave me the idea that I wonder if I could teach dental assisting. And I did that. I put a little $4 ad in the Tulsa World, and it was really simple. It said, you know, let me call Teresa, let me change your life, enjoy a new career as a dental assistant. Yeah. And people started calling me.
That's brilliant. I love that. And so then you take that, and that is you take your lessons you've learned with people, Sonic, you take, you know, the actual practical side of being a dental assistant and marry those two, and then I guess the business starts out you placing people into jobs. Is that how the business starts, or are they paying you as a fee to train and then
to train them? Yeah. Okay. So at first I didn't have a business background, but the dentist I worked for would leave at noon, and so I had my backpack. I packed up all of our dental tools and my little curriculum that I had built. And I was a single mom at the time. I was living in an apartment on Riverside Drive right here in Tulsa. And I had students come to my apartment, and I was just teaching them. Of course, I didn't have, wasn't at the dental office, but between my curriculum and my photos, and I would show them tools and that sort of thing. And they started paying me. I had a few that didn't have any money, so I didn't charge them. And I always remember I call her my first legitimate client. And she contacted me and she said, "How much is your program? About $1,000? And I said, "Yes, ma'am, it is." And I was like, holy crap, this person is going to pay me $1,000, which she did. And there was no going back until I was served documents by the state attorney general's office. And they told me I was operating a school illegally, and that in the state of Oklahoma, you had to be licensed to offer post-secondary education that leads to entry-level employment. And they said I had to, if I captured or if I earned any money, I had to pay that back. And of course, when you live paycheck to paycheck, that money was gone. Yeah. I had already spent it, and it wasn't a lot. But I learned what it took to get licensed. I went back to the dentist I was working for, kind of fessed up to him and let him know what I'd been doing. He thought it was funny. I was horrified that he would be a little upset at me. Yes. And so we worked out an agreement where I would barter my salary and I could use the office for a real school. And it took me about 6 months. I got licensed and I became Dental Directions, the School of Dental Assisting, and was approved by the state of Oklahoma.
Amazing. I'm glad your dentist didn't say, like, you're getting fired as well, right? Because that would have been disastrous.
I know. I think I was still pretty young at the time, and I don't know. He was great.
Yeah. And do you have a son or a daughter at this point?
I have 3 children, and that during that time, that was my oldest, my son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he have any early memories of you doing the school and stuff?
Oh, yeah. He definitely was my teacher's aide.
Yeah.
So when he was younger, he would, it was a tiny apartment. Yeah. And he'd get papers ready for me and other things. And we had a really good time. That's
awesome. So during this time, are you obviously you still have a passion for music and listening to music along the way. Are you collecting at this point as well, or does that come later?
Yeah, definitely. I was always at, garage sales and thrift stores. Mm-hmm. And during that time, right before that time, I had multiple jobs in addition to being a dental assistant, but I got a job at a local music club called the Sunset Grill, and I was able to meet a lot of the Tulsa sound legends like Jimmy Markham and David Teagarden and Bill Davis and the Medicine Show and Jim Sweeney. I mean, the list goes on and on. J.J. Kell came through town and was at our club. It was in a very popular area in Tulsa called Brookside, and it was the hottest club in town. And so, I was always in music, or from a fan perspective. But yeah, collecting vinyl. I have thousands of vinyl records. I have so many turntables. And even before buying the church, I was so much into the music.
Yeah.
And supporting local musicians by, going to their gigs.
Right.
And
so was it pretty strategic for you to get a job at that club then? Because you loved, the passion of music as well as, hey, I get to meet all these people and enjoy music, but I'm also getting paid to be here.
Well, it was mad money. Yeah. I just really needed the money at the time. And one thing I discovered at Sonic is that if you're really nice to people and do, I always say do more unto others than they would do unto you, you get this little thing called a tip. And so I made so many tips at Sonic, but even more so at the club. And it was really great. So it was like-minded people that enjoyed music, supported our local musicians, while making good tip money that I could use every day to survive.
What are the greatest memories you have from working at that club? People that came through and just moments you have in the memories?
Gosh, there were so many. When J.J. Kell was in town and came through, I think that was really, really neat. Same with Dwight Twilley. He was a shelter artist that signed to Leon's record label. He was living, I believe, in California at the time, but when he was in town, he got a gig to play at our club. That was neat. Another time, Kansas came through town and they were looking for a smaller gig. And, it was really pretty cool serving drinks to them as they're playing Dust in the Wind. I mean, there are so many memories. But what's really neat are the people that I met that afterwards I started this other career and kind of left, that job a long time ago, but reconnecting with people that have even toured here at the church studio, and they're like, you're so familiar. And we put it together that they were my customer when I was 21 years old, working at the club. And I looked a little different. I had blonde hair, a big perm, and half my size now, but it's been really neat because people that love music and follow that, they never get away from it. So it's like the same people that went to that club, hang out here at the church.
Yeah. And as life progresses, as the business progresses, then you get to a point where you leave your dental office that you're working at and totally take your training side? Does that just progress naturally, take off?
Yeah. So I was working as the dental assistant, but then I was also teaching, and then the calls just, exploded. And so I was operating as a recruiter, admissions reps. I was teaching and then trying to run the business side of things. And so I had to, make a decision. And so I gave up my dental assisting job altogether and ran out of space at the dental office. And I rented another commercial property to grow the school.
Yeah. Quite a big step, right?
Yes, it was a big step. The really first big step was when I decided to hire my first employee. And that was kind of a game changer. And I hired a receptionist to help me with kind of office management, answering the phone, helping me with student relations, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So during this time then, while you're growing everything and, then life is, snowballs rolling, life is starting to fall into place, you have this school and what you've dreamed to come true is slowly getting there, and you go through, you hire your first employee and you sign a big lease on a new space. Take us to that moment. What is are you just thinking, let's just get through tomorrow, or are you thinking, no, I have a plan in place to where I'm going to make an exit from this business? What is your plan at that time?
Yeah, I never thought about exiting. I was really passionate about it because I know what becoming a dental assistant did for me. I mean, to me, that's the only answer to break the cycle of poverty, to break the cycle of addiction and abuse and all of those different things. And I thought, if I can do this, anyone can do it. So looking back now, it really was kind of a calling or a mission field, to help others do what I was able to do in a really relatively short period of time. My program was 6 months long as well. And but I had some challenges early on. I didn't have an attorney, couldn't afford one. I had no marketing budget. I didn't have an accountant. I was making up how I was doing the business of things. I knew basics because I helped manage the dental office, and so I kind of ran it like a dental office. But I did run into some major cash flow problems, and I remember early on feeling like a huge failure. And it took me many years later to look back that those were growing pains that I thought were failures. And so I started selling everything. One thing that I had collected, some things that I had in my collection, I sold. That I hated to part with, but probably the hardest was my son's VHS tape Disney movie collection. I remember going into the pawn shop and other people that would buy those things, but I was so strapped for cash and I had terrible credit. So, I didn't have credit cards and didn't really have, family members at the time or really any time to help, and I had too much pride to ask for help anyway. And then we lost our place where we were living, and so we lived in our car for about 6 months. And so, but it was fine until my car got stolen, and then I was driving him around town on my bicycle. And so I had my pillow, and I strapped it on the bicycle, and we had fun. It was an adventure. In fact, you met my son earlier. That's Ronnie, who was up here. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
And so
you failed to mention that.
Yeah. No, it's not a big deal. He just sold a business. He's doing so well. But we just laugh. Sometimes we just laugh uncontrollably about how we lived. But it was really cool. But once I got past that, it's like, wow, it was just a hump. And I could have brought in an investor or that sort of thing, but we stuck it out. We elected not to do that. And so we went way backwards, but it propelled us forward because I started the business with our life savings of $750.
Right.
And I grew the school to the largest vocational school in the state, and then in the region, and then in the top 5 in America. So it grew over the years. So we had a good return on investment. So, it was rough, but it was really hard at the time because it's discouraging. You know, the worst problems you can ever have are financial, if you've ever been in that situation, because you need money for everything. But somehow we made it by the grace of God. And, you know, I wasn't even a believer at the time. I am today. But, you know, I'm just so grateful that, you know, He had His watchful eye over us during that time, because it could have gone in a very different direction.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, I mean, you make one wrong turn on your bike and you know, like, it's
exactly.
like,
it was such a ghetto bike too, but it was fun and kept us in good shape, that's for sure.
yeah. But again, like you mentioned, there's so many life lessons from that, and you know, so much belief comes from that, right?
Sure.
If I can come back from that, I can come back from pretty much anything.
Oh, absolutely.
And not only just being you, like you're a mother at this point too, right?
Right.
And you know, you've got a baby to take care of and no money,
right?
And a lot of people probably don't think about this, but also kind of just the mental health side of things, and the pressures of, I wonder what that person's thinking of me because I'm, you know, homeless on the street with my child,
right?
Like all of those things people don't think of. Yeah, I mean, good for you. Congratulations, that's amazing. I did not expect that coming here today. You to say that. That's
well, it was really fun, but then the school really took off. I learned about, you know, I noticed other schools are accredited. What is accreditation? And it took me 3 years, but I got accredited and added other non-dental programs and changed the name to Community Care College, and then expanded past that, Clary Sage College, and then our latest campus is Oklahoma Technical. So when I left, we had 46 programs leading up to an associate's degree, and it was a great adventure. And you know, thousands and thousands of Oklahomans, you know, doing what I did, you know, going from point A to point B. And we're a private vocational school, so we did all of this without $1 of Oklahoma tax dollars. So it was a very self-sufficient institution. And I miss it. I miss it a lot. I still serve on the executive board. It was a for-profit institution all of those years, and I planned on selling it at our 20-year anniversary, but I got cold feet. I couldn't do it. It was like giving up a baby for adoption. So I backed out literally at the closing table of selling it to a East Coast private equity firm. And of course, a lot of things were happening in for-profit education at the time with the University of Phoenix and ITT and Brown Mackey and all of the big, you know, big players. And we were one of the few, you know, single shareholder institutions in the state. So after I didn't sell it, I got this idea that, hey, this needs to be a nonprofit. We hadn't raised tuition in 10 years. We were already giving millions of dollars away in scholarships to Oklahomans. And anyway, that took another 2 years. I converted it from a for-profit to a not-for-profit institution. I stepped down as the owner, CEO, and it operates currently today as a traditional, nonprofit board with the president reporting to the board.
Yeah. To this day, is that your greatest accomplishment that you think of?
I think, yes, by far.
Yeah.
Just because we had everything there, from a prison ministry to other, veterans program, and to see people that feel like they could not do anything, and that you're at a dead end. And I often felt that way growing up. Like, how do you get out of this? How do you get out of it? It seems impossible. Mm-hmm. And for them to walk in, to even take that step, to when they walk and receive their diploma at graduation, it's my greatest accomplishment by far.
Yeah, seeing those smiling faces, right?
My gosh. And seeing them, the first, people talk about first generation college graduate. These are first generation, I got my GED.
Yeah.
People don't realize how many people drop out of high school in Oklahoma, and only 25% of those actually go back and get a GED. So a lot of people back in the day would be kind of ashamed that I got a GED. It's like, congratulations, because you beat the odds. Most people don't.
Right.
And it's so different now with, measuring the return on investment on education. But I'm a huge advocate for career and technical education, because when you grow up the way that I did, you can't think 4-year degree. It's not even in your realm of comprehension. It's like but they can do a 3-month program, a micro credential, or a 6-month, or even surge tech or cosmetology. That's a 12-month long program. You can think along those lines.
Does it kind of irritate you sometimes when people say it can't be done or I can't do it because of everything that you've been through and come back from?
No, I love people, and everyone has a different story. And I used to be really intimidated and judged, wealthy people or people that came from something, but everyone has a story, and that's what connects us. And I've earned a little bit of money over the years, and so it doesn't really change things. And again, everyone is so different, and until you walk in their shoes, you really have no idea.
That's a great point. You mentioned getting to that stage. You were collecting from a very young age. What was your kind of first big purchase that you were like, I'm going to treat myself here? I've worked really hard, I'm going to treat myself.
A 79 Corvette.
Do you still have it?
Yeah, I still have it. Yeah. That was the first thing when I started making money. I love cars, and I actually started buying and selling cars as a teenager. So I already had neat cars. I had a Corvair, I had a 64 Monza Spider, I had a 76 Camaro, I had a Carmagia, I had a Volkswagen Bug, I had a Pinto. Yeah. I mean, I had so many cars, but I never could get to the level of a Corvette. And I love those cars. I mean, it's so sad to see cars today. They're not anything like that. And so, that was totally it. I still have it, and I love that car.
I'm just Googling it now. Oh, it's the greatest Corvette ever.
Absolutely.
I don't like the new ones. The new ones don't. To me, a Corvette is not mid-engine. To me, it's rear engine, front engine, rear-wheel drive, long bonnet, long hood. This one is with the arches and some of the greatest shape. What color was yours?
It's black.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I saw one driving through Oklahoma City. It's probably the last year. It was white with a red interior.
Yeah.
And the guy driving it looked like he was having the greatest time ever.
It's so fun.
I'm just like, you are living life. I could talk cars forever. So.
It's so fun. In fact, I love this weather. I don't know. Springtime, I pull out the Camaro, or I have the Camaro. I have a 69 Camaro also, but, and I have a 72 Chevy, and I have a 69 Carmagia. Okay. I just love cars. I don't have the Bandit. I do want that Trans Am.
Yeah, so. with the eagle on the
absolutely.
It's like Firebird on the hood, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I love Burt Reynolds. I love Smokey and the Bandit. So
Cannonball Run.
Oh yes, all of those are so good.
Such a great era of movies, right? That was to me, that's like. Some of the effects obviously in those movies are just terrible. But when I watch Cannonball Run, when I see, was it him? When he was it Burt Reynolds, and then I can't remember who the other actor was in the car, and he was like a superhero and he called himself him.
Oh yes, okay.
And then you had kind of like the two supermodels in the Lamborghini maybe, and then you've got like the Sheikh driving his Rolls. Oh
wow, you do know your movies. I need to go back and watch it.
It's such a great, for people listening, go watch Cannonball Run. It's fantastic. Yeah.
But cars and music, they go together, and then you think about Tulsa with Route 66. I mean, they just go together. And so so many great memories cranking up that favorite song on your stereo, and I don't know, I love it.
Yeah. Do you have one what's next, like what for cars? You have something you have your eye on? It sounds like you stick to like a period, 70s, early 80s cars.
When I was younger, I got rid of my Corvair, and I love Corvair. They're rear engine, air cooled. They're terrible cars. Ralph Nader wrote a book called Unsafe at Any Speed, but I love that car so much, so I'm looking for a Corvair currently. So, and I'd like to have that particular one.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm going to take this away from cars because I could talk to you about cars forever. I don't know if you want to listen to that. I have a separate podcast about cars. I might have to have you on that one day too. So, businesses being successful, like you mentioned, it's moving to a place, you think about selling it, you get cold feet, you move to a non-profit side of things. When then does kind of this building that we're in today, what's like your earliest memory of the building, and then when does it even come a possibility that one day you may be able to own this building? And then let's go through that process.
Well, after I convert, one day I'm the CEO and I own this institution. And the next day, after we basically closed to convert it to a even though it took 2 years to do that, I wasn't a school owner. In my entire adult life, I had that school. And so I stayed another 6 months to get the new president transitioned and for the school, because it was classic founder's dilemma. And I see that happening in a lot of different businesses, but it's all tied around the founder. You know what I mean? You're the cheerleader, the ambassador, and founders, operate their businesses a little bit different than just hiring someone in. So I stepped away at that 6-month mark, and I went, and I'm not someone that gets depressed. I'm pretty even keel all the time, but I was going through something that I'd never recognized in myself before, and I realized it was grief. And I bought a little building next to Circle Cinema, which is a historic theater here in town, and was renovating that. It had been dilapidated since the 80s. I'm real hands-on on construction and that sort of thing. And I found myself... my older brother, we were talking one day, talking about Leon, talking about the church. And so I found myself driving by here because it's just a couple of minutes away, and just really sad at the shape it was in. I mean, trash everywhere. I looked at the crime stats. There was a rape, murder, assault, theft every single day. And it's just like, man, this looks so terrible on Leon's, this amazing artist that was the #1 touring act in America in 1972. That's when he came back to his hometown here in Tulsa. And it's like, this looks so terrible. And I, been collecting music, memorabilia, Leon stuff. And I found the owner on the tax records. I wrote him a letter and said, hey, would you ever consider this building? Because I needed more projects. I was used to working. I've always worked 24/7 and multiple projects, and renovating a building that I was working on wasn't quite satisfying, the number of hours that I can produce in a day. And so he said, it's not for sale, but meet with me. And we met at a little bar down the street, and he was a huge Leon fan too. And so we talked Leon stories, that sort of thing. I was like, oh, can I see it? I want to go inside. And it's like, no, let's, but we finally came to a deal in the bar. It's literally, you hear about napkin deals. That's really what it was. We're making notes on, this whiskey infested napkin deal. And it was, we did it. And so he still wouldn't show it to me. So I ended up closing at Guarantee Abstract downtown Tulsa, and I still had never stepped foot in the building. And so bought it sight unseen, walked in, and it was shocking, the state that it was in. And I always stand by my decisions and always see it as a cool opportunity, but I do have to admit I had buyer's remorse for about 24 hours. And 24 hours later, we immediately started cleaning up the facility. It was flooded in the basement. I can't even describe to you the shape that it was in. It was so horrifying. And I've seen a lot of really bad places. And I sketched out our logo, kind of how I vision, because I always have to begin with the end in mind. I know that's a Stephen Covey quote, but it's really how I feel. I always go opposite. And then just started formulating a strategy. And of course, we had to bring structural engineers in very quickly because the building was imploding. And, put RFPs out there. I wanted to get a really great architect. I knew we'd have to add on to the property. And that's really how it came about. I didn't know exactly exactly what I was going to do with it, but I like buildings kind of speak to me, and that's what this one was doing. I had visions of an elaborate girl cave. You mentioned a man cave earlier with your boss, but but I knew the building was significant and more important, which led me to start the process of getting it listed on the National Register of Historic Places. That was super important. This is not a historic district. This is the Pearl District. It's not like Kendall Whittier or Maple Ridge or the Katy Railroad District or even the Arts District. Those are all recognized historic districts. This one isn't. So would this even qualify? What is that process like? But really proud to say that we did get it listed, and it's one of the few historic recording studios in America, not only recognized by the State Preservation Office, but the National Park Service. And we're in a cohort of other studios such as Motown, RCA Studio B, Capitol Records, Stax, and of course the church studio right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's amazing, and obviously, once you get it listed, the credits that are available to you, in having a listed building. And I had Snyder on from the Mayo, and he was talking about when they turned the Mayo around, because it was a listed building, they had so many tax credits, and they had it made it doable, to fund everything and to have that. So obviously, it's great to be a listed building, but it comes with massive benefits as well, and they can help you, right?
Right. I mean, we haven't used tax credits for this building because we are not finished with the process. So I'm hoping, it's not guaranteed, but there is a 20% tax credit from the state of Oklahoma and 20% on the federal. Of course, they're used on your tax return, but you can sell the state tax credits. But hopefully we'll get those because, early on I thought, I'm going to budget $1 million for this renovation. I didn't know, and you were, $11 million in? And so, I want it to be more than an expensive hobby. I need the building to be self-sustaining because I may not be here tomorrow, and I need it to be here forevermore. It's such an important landmark, not only to honor the life and legacy of Leon Russell, but just the early church is beautiful. No one knew anything about this church, and I have interviewed 380 so people to get to the truth of this building, and it's magnificent and it's beautiful.
Yeah. For people listening, like I said, I'll put the link to the website so you can go read the history and everything, because it is fascinating, and you've got to come and see it and take a tour and have some of the tour guides walk you through, because they know a lot of things and you'll be blown away by the information that you'll learn. The other thing that I want to ask is, you mentioned starting with the end in mind. What is the end in mind? What was that goal, and has that evolved over time of renovating the building?
Yes, so I wanted it to be, shortly after I bought this, I took a trip to Detroit and I went to Motown. And I loved it. Of course, we all love Motown music, and and Stevie Wonder has a history with the church, and I mean, it's such a neat story. But it made me a little sad too, because you have artifacts on the wall, and it's a neat story, but so what, right? And especially to younger people that can't resonate or even relate to that music. And so I knew early on that it needed to be relevant to today's artist. It needed to be not just an archive, and we do, my collection, I've called it the Church Studio Archive. After I saw what the Bob Dylan Center's doing and George Kaiser Family Foundation, I was like, wow, that's a fancy name for a collection. Maybe people won't get that I purchased it at garage sales and everything else, but I knew it needed to. I didn't want that. I didn't want a museum, and I don't even have a museum background or anything like that. And so, that was the end. It's like, how can we be relevant to music today so the legacy continues? I mean, I love the pioneers like Leon Russell and J.J. Cale and all the shelter artists that came through here, but we can be inspired by them, but we have to be forward thinking, because as you know, another great quote, what got you here won't get you there. And so we have to be agile and be able to respond to market conditions and even consumer behavior, how people relate to music, how they consume music today. It's different than during Leon's time.
Yeah. For people listening that aren't aware of who Leon Russell is and what the church studio means to him and you and everybody listening, don't dive down into the weeds, because you could talk about it, I'm sure, for hours. But a brief synopsis on how this is important, and then we'll dive into the amount of people that are superstars in the industry that have come through this building. So.
Right. I said this earlier. Leon was #1 touring artist in America in 1972 when he came back to his hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was born in Lawton, but his hometown, he grew up here. Tulsa was his home. And he could have gone anywhere at the time, but he came back here. And Leon had this extraordinary history as a session player and really became the musician's musician. And, you look at the success of Mad Dogs and Englishmen with Joe Cocker in 1969. You look at the concert for Bangladesh and what he accomplished with Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton. Of course, that was George Harrison's vision. And his fourth studio album, Carney, in 1972, and he was here. So he attracted everyone to Tulsa, not only on the Shelter Records label, but you look at Willie Nelson recording here. You look at, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, the Wailers, Tom Petty. Tom Petty getting his start right here in this building. It's extraordinary. And people held Leon to such a high esteem. And I think that's really neat. That's something that I've always been proud of as an Oklahoman, but so many people can be proud of. And it was entrepreneurial. I love business and how businesses get started and what makes them work. And as I've analyzed, even though the label imploded and it didn't do that well at the end and it was short-lived, it was very entrepreneurial from a technology perspective, what he brought here in the church, his marketing strategy, his marketing assets that they put in out there in magazines and in print materials. It was so innovative, and I'm inspired by that. And when I share that with artists that are recording today, they love it. And we have original songwriting from Leon and lyric sheets, and him bringing in an orchestra and other musical instruments, and we'll pull that out for a young band, and they're like, holy, and they start writing. They're so inspired. So even though music has evolved and changed, we can learn by these trailblazers from Oklahoma that did so. And J.J. Kell, and even Steve Ripley, he owned the church studio after Leon for 19 years. It was extraordinary what he did with the tractors. And we have so much to be proud of this building during, Leon's time, Steve Ripley's time, and also 1915 when this amazing building was built by the people. It tells an important story in Tulsa. This was an integrated church in 1915. And, the story that people hear about our racist city in 1921, that's not the full story. Our state, people gravitated from all over the world to Tulsa because of our diversity after the turn of the century. And I think that's a really important story to tell that we can all be really proud of.
Yeah, you're right. It's a great point to make. And I think the other thing that obviously draws people in, it wasn't just Leon as well, but it was the sound in this building, right? And how do you, when you buy it and you rent it, how do you keep that sound, right? When you're renovating and you're walking in or you're seeing photos and you're like, this place is rough, right? You're like, how do we get that sound back?
Right, exactly. Right. And a lot of musicians refer to that as vibe, but we did invest significantly on a great guy, Steve Durr out of Nashville, on the acoustics. We brought in approximately 28 miles of wire, all of our copper, premium out of Japan, the glass windows. We purchased our glass out of Germany. It's triple pane glass. And, the sound is really important. And we've still been dialing in the sound. We've been open for 1 year. We opened last spring, and we continue to get feedback with musicians, but it's so close to perfect right now. It's amazing to see artists come in, and legacy artists artists like Kenny Loggins to get emotional and start crying in that room. And, you know, others like Jimmy Webb from Oklahoma, or Taj Mahal to, you know, or Nick Mason, the founding member of Pink Floyd, playing drums in our room. Is like, holy cow, this sounds like Abbey Road 2.0. I mean, those compliments are amazing.
Yeah.
And it's really cool.
Nick Mason's also got a very good car collection.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, what a sweetheart. I
one
hope
of
he
the
comes
best car
back.
collections.
Yeah, we've got to meet some really neat people through here.
So Nick Mason was recent within the last year, and all those people you named were recently come back in the last year.
Yeah, these are people that, you know, during our post renovation. Yeah, this past year, it's really neat. Yeah, we're staying booked, so it's great.
That's also, I mean, for your 16-year-old self, or growing up, that's like pinch me moments, right? Like, I'm having these people come to a building that I own, like what my team has put together and done, and this is a year of being open. This is only just the beginning, and you getting these names. It's sky's the limit, right? It's
incredible. And I'm a music fan at heart, and so just having to be all like, oh crap, look who it is, and I'll be like, I remember when Joe Bonamassa walks in, I was like, hey Joe, how you doing? Cool. And it's like, oh my gosh, as my heart is coming out of my chest. But musicians are so cool, and the ones that know Leon or knew of him, or any of the artists that came through here, like Joe was very interested in Don Nix, who was the first artist assigned to Shelter Records, who wrote the song Going Down. I mean, it's neat to be able to make those connections. It's neat when Lucas Nelson came in, he was kind of tracing his dad's footsteps in the church, and we had some things to show him, and it's really an honor. It's so cool.
Yeah. When Joe walks in, and like, he's one of the greatest guitar players of all time, and like you said, you're trying not to fangirl out or have that moment, try and act cool. Like, act cool. No. Don't freak out. Yeah, that's super exciting.
It's neat.
And I can't probably, like, the hard part of the excitement that you have for people coming in here. You've got to keep it under wraps, right? You can't be like, guess who's coming in 2 weeks. You can't. That's probably the tough part. Other than obviously internally with the team, you can't be shouting from the rooftops. Because you have to maintain that privacy. Yes, you can say after they've been, but the last thing artists want, or you want, is to ruin that reputation. Of a building.
We have to be careful. We had a mishap recently. Bill Ward, the founding member to Black Sabbath, another drummer. He's so cool, and he was here for 2 full days. Drove his bus in from LA and his whole team, and it was so great. And at the end of it, it's like, take pictures with me. And so we took that to be that. Oh yeah, we could put on Instagram and Facebook, and it was like his post was literally going viral, and we love that because we're all about content. Because the church didn't really, it had a name and a reputation, but it didn't have a logo, it didn't have a brand, it didn't have a digital footprint. And so my goal during our 5.5 years of renovation was to build digital brand equity. And so I've been all about the content, but and of course heard from his manager. I was like, will you take that down? And so I asked him like 5 different ways of how I can keep it up. He's like, just pull it down. And I was kind of embarrassed that we had to do that, but I was embarrassed that maybe they were disappointed. But he assured me that they want to come back, and that he had an amazing experience here. He loves that. He wrote 3 songs each day he was here. He already came in with like 28 or 58. I don't even know how many songs. He's an amazing guy. But we heard a hard lesson. But then, we had Elle King this past weekend recording. And so we were taking some photos. We asked permission. She said, sure. It's like, oh, will you please tag us? And, oh, will you share the photos? And then all of a sudden she has it on TikTok. And so you just never know. And I think it's the older artists that's social media that hold in. They don't want to throw up all their content at one time, but anyway, and then we have NDAs, so we know that we don't do anything.
Yeah, that's the tough part, right? Because and you're talking about 5.5 years of renovating and building a brand, and social media is free, right? So in quotations free. Yes,
just time.
You have you have time, and you have a team that's doing it all for you. But it is the best way to get your name out there, social media, especially if you're trying to attract and build the brand for the younger generation to remember all of these great artists that have come through. And obviously, Elle isn't, she's not old, right? She's kind of in that current era. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's people that come to the building and you're like, can I just kind of sit in the room, back corner? I won't say anything. I just want to like nerd out and enjoy you, watch you do your process, because it's, it's like watching, sitting there and watching a painter paint, right? Like you're watching someone mix and kind of create songs and write songs and pull stuff in.
It's very intimate and private, and we're very cognizant of that when they go on breaks. But, we offer, private butler, concierge services, and we really try to go above and beyond. And we're selling Tulsa in Oklahoma to them as well. And many of them stay with us at the Harweldon Mansion, another property I have, and we can give them the full experience. We can talk about the trailblazers of the oil barons and how generous and what they did for our state and the city in particular. And then we get to talk about our music history all the way from Bob Wills through Leon's time. And that's what our goal is. We're selling Oklahoma to the rest of the world. And we love it when they say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And they love it, and they come back, and that's part of our purpose.
Yeah. Tell me about that hospitality side of your business and the building you just mentioned. How did that start? Like, how does that start in the whole story of you and this building and everything? And how does that weave into, now it's obviously a huge part of the business because you can host these people and tell them part of the story. But does that start before you buy Church Studio? Is that a business that you just kind of?
It was after.
Okay, after. Okay.
So after I bought the church, we had some delays, and this was COVID time, but it was also because of the National Park Service. They were very particular on this renovation, and it posed a lot of challenges because it's over 100 years old, but the vibe and the period of significance is Leon's time, but a lot of advancements in acoustical design and engineering. So with some of these delays, the Harweldon went on the market, and I felt like that was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A local restaurant actually put an offer on it, but it fell through. And I remember being so relieved because I thought, oh my gosh, that glorious mansion. And I grew up in a housing project on the other side of the river across from Harweldon. So I was always enamored by this gorgeous mansion castle. It looked like a castle to me. Like, who would live in that type of house? I mean, it was just so mind-blowing to me. But when that deal fell through, I heard about it like an hour later, reached out about the property, walked through, and honestly, like this, it was another impulse purchase. And it was owned by the Arts Council of Tulsa, which is called AHA, and they recently went under or closed down. I don't know what you want to call it, but it was bequeathed to them in 1967. And I felt kind of strange that it was donated to someone in 67 and they were selling it, but I actually befriended the granddaughter of the original owners and talked with her. And anyway, I felt good about it. Anyway, I bought it. It took me a little over 2 years to renovate it. I have it today as a venue, but it's also a bed and breakfast. All those bedrooms have been gutted out, so I got it back to the period 1923, and in fact we're celebrating our 100-year anniversary this year, 1923 to 2023, and it works out great. For example, Taj Mahal has stayed there twice. Air Supply has been there twice. When they were here recently, their first acoustic set in their 47-year career, they were here at the church and then recorded the following day, but they stayed with us at the Harweldon. And again, it's just an opportunity for us to talk about that property. It's an English Tudor mansion, and we have traditional afternoon tea and offer so many different things. But again, just a way to tell a different Tulsa story than the Church Studio Leon story.
Sounds like my kind of place. I love a good cup of tea.
Oh, I do too. I drink tea nonstop.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn some different things since I'm a redneck at heart. We have a lot
milk?
of... Yeah. I haven't been doing milk, but even, we were calling it high tea, and our British people that would go was like, this is afternoon tea. the blue collar workers did high tea, but people call it high tea anyway. And so, but I've learned a lot about proper English tea. And do not do your pinky up. So
no.
I was like, with my teacup, it's like, oh, I'm proper.
Your little China set, yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Brilliant.
But it's a beautiful property.
Yeah, there's a reoccurring theme here of you kind of getting old buildings, renovating them, and having projects. And like you said, when this building came around and you didn't have a project, this was the one.
Right.
And what you mentioned in the podcast is like you're always working on something. You have a really high work ethic, and you've got to have your projects. What is the project at the moment? Is there anything else that we haven't mentioned?
Well, I'm developing this neighborhood. I kind of named it Studio Row. I've been able to purchase 13 properties around the church, and not that I'm a control freak, but I had to control the crime.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get other small businesses vested in the area. So we have tenants, from a coffee shop to a bed and breakfast. There's a vinyl record store, 3 restaurants. I have a contract on a building across the street I'm super excited about. And the main reason is when artists are here visiting from out of state that, they can walk across the street and get a cup of coffee. And crime is down to almost zero. I'm so proud of that. And, some people may say it's a gentrification of a neighborhood, but there's not a lot of residential housing over here. And I think it's just a way to have an economic impact on this part of town that helps schools and our parks and roads and everything else. But yeah, I just want to continue. We're just 1 year in the entertainment world, working with record labels and A&R folks and that sort of thing. So I'm just learning what I can. We are revitalizing Shelter Records. I was able to get that trademark. Leon let it expire in 81. And so we're looking at a very unique record label model that will hopefully be a benefit to musicians that sign with us. And so that's kind of my main focus, and getting a new staff trained and, being relevant.
Super exciting. And, you've got plenty of work to do and a huge team. Well, not a huge team, but you've got a team behind you and everyone's moving in the right direction. Finishing up, there's 2 more questions I want to ask you. One of them is, for everybody that comes in the studio, do you have anything special that you either have them do, or just to keep a record of them here? Do you have a photo wall? Is there anything special that just historically in your love of collecting things that you have them do or sign or whatever?
So we do keep old school track sheets, and so we are documenting that history that way. We do have a wall that's kind of a secret wall off the control room. But we are recording so many people. We thought, who's wall-worthy or not? And everyone's wall-worthy. Yeah. So we started capturing signatures, and we just use Grammy as if you have a Grammy. And so we do have this wall of fame. So it's been kind of fun to get people to sign that. Yeah.
The next question I have is, what is your most prized possession in your collection?
We have an original self-portrait. I believe it to be Leon Russell's only self-portrait. He did it with a marker, and he drew himself. That ended up on an album, and he signed his real name, Leon Russell, on that, and he signed it his alter ego on the album, which was Hank Wilson. Yeah. I love that, and because it's, I don't know. It probably is, but we have so many great pieces, so it's hard to choose. But I would say, an original self-portrait by Leon Russell himself.
Brilliant, Teresa. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For an hour of your time, for sharing stories. Like I said this on the last podcast. There's so many we're not going to get to, right? Which is great because I get to come back, and in maybe a year or 3 years, however long it is, there'll be more stories. So. But thank you for what you've done. Thanks for the
great questions.
Yeah, thank you for
ramble on.
No, it's all right. It's all great. I think your story's incredible. What you've been through, what you've come through, what you've overcome, what you've built. Starting a business, having a letter from the state. You just go through everything and the things that you've persevered through as a single mom. I mean, there's so many lessons to learn from this. I resonate with your love of cars. We could talk about that for another time. Maybe we'll have to have you on my car podcast.
Yeah, I'll have to show you my pictures.
Yeah, we'll have to go through that. As well as, I mean, just the collection that you have, right? Like this, I love the fact that you've built a business around a passion. And that's something that people listening will, connect with as well. And there's so many things that we are capable of and we can do. We just got to put one foot in front of the other and do, give it a go, right? I mean, yes, everything's risky, but at the same time, regret, I think, is more painful than, not trying and failing.
Absolutely.
So,
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's incredible. So thank you so much for your time. I love what you've done here. Wish you incredible success from here on out. Can't wait to see the Shelter Records label come back and the names that are going to come through this building. So for people listening, I'll put the links to Instagram, all the social medias, the link to your bed and breakfast. Remind me of the name again.
Harweldon Mansion.
I'll put that in the description, as well as Church Studio. And stop on by, come on a tour, buy some merch. And you could even use this place as a venue if you wanted to. If you want to have a wedding reception, maybe.
Or record.
If you're a recording artist and listening to this, come here and nerd out, record where, legends of the industry have come. So for people listening, thank you so much. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.